Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Kevin wiped sweat from his brow as he tinkered with the broken communication array. The thing was ancient, practically obsolete by interstellar standards, but it was all the people on Porthos 7 had. He'd been called out to the planet for a quick repair job, something he expected to wrap up in a day or two. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, he found himself stranded, cut off from the rest of the galaxy with no way to leave, and worse yet, the Zeklon Empire had plans to annihilate the planet. His hands moved deftly over the wires, reconnecting a few, resoldering others. The array crackled to life for a moment, then died again. Kevin cursed under his breath. It was no use, the parts were too far gone. He kicked the base of the array in frustration. The barren, rocky terrain of Porthos 7 stretched out in every direction, the mining colony just a few miles from where he stood. Dust storms brewed on the horizon, and the distant outline of a Zeklon blockade hung in the sky like an ominous shadow. He turned and began the trek back to the colony. His mind was racing, calculating the impossibility of the situation. Thousands of people were still stuck on the planet, and with the Zeklon fleet growing closer every day, their window for evacuation was closing rapidly. The Zeklon Empire wasn't known for mercy. They'd wipe out the entire population without hesitation if it meant securing this rock for their military outpost. And Porthos 7, with its depleted resources and lack of strategic importance, had no reason to be defended by the Galactic Alliance. No help was coming. As Kevin entered the colony, the mood was palpable. People scurried around in a panic, trying to board the last few evacuation shuttles. Those that weren't destroyed by the Zeklon blockade were grounded due to a lack of fuel or parts. The colony's once bustling mining outpost now felt like a graveyard waiting for the final nail in its coffin. Children clung to their parents, who whispered empty reassurances. "Kevin," a voice called out. He turned to see Tom, one of the colony's mechanics, jogging toward him. Tom was older, his face etched with worry lines from years of hard labor and now the looming threat of extinction. "Any luck with the comms?" Kevin shook his head. "It's toast. Even if I could get it running, the Zeklon ships are jamming all outbound signals." Tom sighed, his shoulders slumping. "Then we're really on our own, huh?" "Looks like it," Kevin replied, glancing around at the makeshift barricade some of the colonists had set up. They were pitiful at best, a few steel beams and piles of rock. They'd do nothing against an empire as powerful as the Zeklon. Tom followed Kevin's gaze. "This isn't going to hold, is it?" "No, it's not," Kevin said. "But I have an idea. It's crazy, but it's all we've got." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Crazy is better than nothing. What's your plan?" "I've been exploring the old mining sites," Kevin explained. "There's a lot of outdated machinery down there. Mining drones, some ancient combat drones from when this place was more than a rock in the middle of nowhere. They're mostly junk, but I think I can retrofit them, turn them into something that can fight." Tom's expression shifted from doubt to curiosity. "You think you can turn that junk into weapons?" "I know I can," Kevin said confidently. "I just need time and some help." "We don't have much time," Tom said. "But you've got my help." "What do you need?" Kevin nodded. "We'll need to gather every bit of scrap, wiring, and fuel cells we can find. I'll set up a workshop in one of the old warehouses. Spread the word to anyone who can lend a hand." For the next few days, Kevin threw himself into the work. Time was running out, but he refused to let the weight of their impending doom crush him. He scavenged through the colony's forgotten corners, finding old mining equipment, decommissioned robots, and even parts of an ancient defense system that had been dormant for decades. His hands worked tirelessly, repurposing plasma cutters into weapons, rewiring mining drones for combat, and reprogramming AI to follow basic defense patterns. Survivors trickled into his makeshift workshop, offering their help. Some brought scrap metal, others offered their expertise in electronics or welding. The colony, which had once been gripped by fear, now buzzed with a strange sense of purpose. Kevin's confidence was contagious. Even though they were outnumbered, even though the odds were impossible, they had a plan. And a plan was better than waiting to die. Kevin stood in front of the growing army of repurposed machines. There were dozens now, mining drones with mounted plasma weapons, combat drones outfitted with fusion bombs, and towering loaders refitted to serve as mobile artillery. It wasn't much, but it was something. Tom walked up beside him, surveying the machinery. It's impressive. But will it be enough? Kevin clenched his jaw, staring at the horizon where the Zeklon fleet had gathered. It has to be. The first wave came without warning. Zeklon scout ships screamed across the sky, raining down fire on the colony. The makeshift defenses struggled to hold, but Kevin's machines fought back. Plasma bursts lit up the battlefield, and the drones engaged with precision, swarming the enemy ships. Kevin's heart pounded in his chest as he directed the machines from a remote terminal, his fingers flying over the controls. They managed to repel the first wave, but it came at a cost. Many of the machines were destroyed, and the survivors of the colony were beginning to lose hope once more. Kevin worked through the night, repairing what he could, scavenging more parts, and modifying the remaining machines for greater efficiency. The final assault came 2 days later. The Zeklon fleet arrived in full force, their capital ships looming over the planet like harbingers of death. Kevin knew they didn't stand a chance in a direct fight. His machines were no match for the full might of the Zeklon Empire. But he had one last trick up his sleeve. Kevin reprogrammed a group of mining drones, overloading their fusion reactors and setting them on a collision course with the Zeklon command ship. It was a suicide mission for the machines, but if it worked, the resulting explosion would be enough to cripple the enemy fleet. As the drones made their final approach, Kevin watched, breathless, from the colony's control center. The explosion was deafening, a blinding flash of light that shook the entire planet. The Zeklon command ship was obliterated, and with it, their fleet's coordination. Without their leader, the remaining ships scrambled in disarray, retreating into the void. The battle was over. Porthos 7 was saved. Kevin slumped against the control panel, exhausted but victorious. The people of the colony emerged from their shelters, blinking in disbelief as the sky cleared. They had done the impossible. Kevin had done the impossible. In the days that followed, word of Kevin's triumph spread throughout the galaxy. He had single-handedly repelled an empire's invasion with nothing more than his wits and some scrap metal. Porthos 7 became a symbol of hope and Kevin a hero. But as Kevin looked out at the stars, he knew that this was only the beginning. The Zeklon Empire would return, and next time, they'd be ready for him. But now, so would he. Kevin stared up at the stars, the cold glow of distant suns reflecting in his tired eyes. The victory on Porthos 7 had left him feeling both relieved and hollow. For all his ingenuity, all his quick thinking, he had no illusions about the odds they had overcome. It was a miracle they were still alive. A miracle, and a warning. The Zeklon Empire wouldn't simply slink away after their defeat. They would regroup, re-strategize, and eventually return to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs. the colony was buzzing with a mix of celebration and tension. Survivors gathered in small groups, discussing their next steps. The sense of unity that had formed during the fight was now replaced by the anxious reality of their situation. Kevin knew they needed more than hope if they were going to survive what came next. He wandered back to his makeshift workshop. The tools were scattered across the workbench, half-repaired drones lay motionless in the corner, and the air smelled of burnt wiring and metal shavings. His body screamed for rest, but his mind was already running ahead. He couldn't afford to stop now. They needed to rebuild, better, stronger. A knock at the door broke his concentration. It was Tom, looking just as worn out as Kevin but with a determined look in his eyes. "Kevin, the council wants to see you," Tom said. Kevin raised an eyebrow. "Council?" "Yeah, they've pulled together a group of the colony leaders to figure out what to do next. They're waiting for you in the control room." Kevin nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "All right. Let's see what they've got." The control room was packed when Kevin arrived. A dozen or so colony leaders were gathered around a large holographic display, which was now flickering with a rough schematic of the planet and its remaining infrastructure. The mood in the room was tense, and all eyes turned to Kevin as he stepped inside. "Kevin," a stern voice called from the front. It belonged to a woman named Nora, one of the senior leaders of the colony. "We owe you everything for what you did. But now, we have a bigger problem. The Zeklon will come back, and next time, they won't make the same mistakes." "I know," Kevin replied, his voice calm but firm. "We barely survived this time. If we don't get better defenses in place, we won't be so lucky when they return." Nora nodded. "Exactly. We've sent out more distress signals, but there's no guarantee anyone will come to help us. We're on our own for now, and we need a plan." Kevin approached the holographic display, his mind already working through the possibilities. "I can rebuild the drones and improve them. We still have some mining equipment left, and I think I can reconfigure the power grid to support more automated defenses. But we'll need raw materials, metal, fuel cells, and more advanced processors. What we have here isn't enough." Nora crossed her arms. "We're already scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to resources. There's nothing left." Kevin stared at the display, lost in thought. "Not here, no. But the old mining outposts further north, there might be something there. I know they were decommissioned years ago, but they could still have supplies." Tom stepped forward. "I've been to those outposts. It's a long trek, and the terrain is rough. Plus, who knows what condition they're in. Do we have any choice?" Kevin asked, glancing around the room. "We either find what we need, or we sit here and wait for the Zeklon to come back and wipe us out. I'll go, and I'll take anyone willing to help." There was a long pause before Nora spoke again. "All right, Kevin. We'll send a team with you. But you've earned the right to lead this mission. Just tell us what you need." Kevin felt the weight of the responsibility settle onto his shoulders. He had become a reluctant leader in a fight he hadn't asked for, but now he knew there was no turning back. "We leave at first light." The next morning, Kevin stood at the edge of the colony, a small group of volunteers gathered around him. They were a mix of mechanics, miners, and a few ex-soldiers who had settled on Porthos 7 before the war had reached their doorstep. They were equipped with what little gear they had left, makeshift weapons, utility belts, and ration packs for the journey ahead. Tom handed Kevin a portable scanner. This should help you track down any remaining resources in the outposts. I wish we had better equipment, but this is what we've got. Kevin strapped the scanner to his belt and shouldered his pack. It'll have to do. The journey to the northern outposts was grueling. The landscape shifted from the rocky plains near the colony to jagged mountains and ravines. Dust storms whipped around them, making visibility almost zero at times. Despite the rough conditions, Kevin pressed forward, determined to find the materials they needed to stand a chance. After 2 days of trekking, they reached the first outpost. The facility was in ruins, its once gleaming walls now covered in dust and debris. It had been abandoned for years, left to decay in the unforgiving environment. Kevin activated the scanner and began to sweep the area. The signal was faint, but there were signs of usable materials buried beneath the rubble. "All right, let's get to work," Kevin said, and the team began digging through the wreckage. Hours passed, and the sun was beginning to set when they uncovered a stockpile of old fuel cells and a cache of raw metal. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Better than nothing," Tom remarked, wiping dirt from his face. As they worked, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Zeklon were out there, and even though they had retreated, Kevin knew they were watching. Waiting. He scanned the horizon, his instincts on high alert. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A distant rumble echoed through the mountains. Kevin froze, his heart racing. "That's not natural," he muttered. Before anyone could react, a group of Zeklon drones descended from the sky, their sleek, angular forms glinting in the fading light. The team scrambled for cover as the drones opened fire, plasma bolts scorching the ground around them. "Get to the outpost. Use the debris for cover," Kevin shouted, grabbing a makeshift weapon from his belt. The team dove behind the remains of the outpost's walls, returning fire with what little they had. The Zeklon drones were relentless, their precision strikes pinning the group down. Kevin's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and running out of time, but then it hit him. The fuel cells they had uncovered, if he could rig them to explode, they might have a chance to take out the drones in one fell swoop. "Tom," Kevin called out. "I need you to cover me. I'm going to rig the fuel cells." Tom nodded without hesitation, firing at the drones to keep them distracted while Kevin scrambled toward the pile of fuel cells. His hands moved swiftly, rewiring the cells and setting a timer for detonation. He had only a few seconds to make this work. As he finished the setup, Kevin bolted back toward the others, shouting, "Get down."